Welcome to the Kentucky History Channel, where we strive to bring you all the Kentucky history content you want and you deserve. Kentucky is a part of all of us, and we plan on covering all the history we can, from Pike County to Fulton County, from Louisville to Harlan. Here on our YouTube channel, you can find many videos dedicated to different events, people, governors, and places in Kentucky. There's something for everybody. While you're here, if you like the channel, hit the subscribe button and the notification button so you get notified anytime new Kentucky history is available. And if you want to support the channel, we have a Patreon page as well, or patreon.com/KYHistoryPod. Welcome back to the Kentucky History Podcast. I'm your host, Jameson Cable, and I have two special guests with me, and we're going to be talking about some Hickman County history, all the way out in West Kentucky. I have with me local historian John Ross, who is the retired curator of the Hickman County Museum, and Elizabeth Jewell, who is a longtime Hickman Countyan who has roots deep in the county, who is here, and they are going to tell us all about Hickman County history. Thank you all for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us.
No, it's a great honor. I know we've been in talk and working this out, and this is the first time the podcast has been with 3 different time zones. So I'm in Eastern time. John is in Central time, and Liz is in Pacific time.
San Francisco,
right?
Yep.
Whew,
Pacific.
wow. if only we had somebody in Mountain Time, we would be in all over the country.
All over the map.
Before we get into too much, Liz, if you don't mind, tell us a little about your Kentucky connection and those deep Hickman County roots.
Oh, well, I don't know when my family really came to Hickman County, but it was too long ago to really know. And all I can tell you about that is that everybody in the family loves Hickman County history. It's just so rich. It's so visual. When you think about Hickman County, you can think about lots of stories, and you can think about where it is on the map. For instance, it's way down there in the corner of Kentucky. It is farther west than Paducah and Bowling Green and Cadiz, and you can see Missouri from Kentucky. And it's just visually interesting. I think that's one thing that really appeals to me. It borders the Mississippi River. And I don't think it's the main part of the Mississippi shoreline, but let me say that again. I don't think it has the longest shoreline of the river counties, but it definitely has the most interesting shoreline. It has chalk bluffs on one side, and then this crescent or basin, and these sort of iron-like bluffs. At least that's what the very earliest settlers thought. And the very earliest, very, very earliest people were the mound builders, and then the Chickasaws. And they were both drawn to this area because it was just a wonderful hunting ground. Imagine the rich forests, the old growth trees, and then the boundary of the river and these tall bluffs. There were a lot of mistaken impressions about the bluffs, and John should tell you about
that. All right. Well, John, real quick, tell us a little bit about your Hickman County or just Kentucky connection.
Well, actually, I'm from Texas.
Oh.
Now, my parents were local, Carroll County and O'Brien County, Tennessee, but Daddy got a job in South Texas running movie theaters. So I was born in South Texas, but we always came up here to visit the relatives. Well, you know what happened to the small town movie business in the 1950s?
Mm-hmm.
So in 1960, Daddy got a job uh, with an insurance company, and he was sent to Hickman County. And so we moved here, and I started the sixth grade here. Now I have one advantage, just like the previous county historian who was from West Virginia. We appreciate what everybody takes for granted. If you go to Columbus Park today, yes, you can see the Mississippi River and you can see Missouri, but you're watching them from a bluff that's almost 150 feet high.
Wow.
And you can see for miles because Missouri is flat as a table.
John's right. The contrast between the terrain in Hickman County and then what you see across, it's a really a majestic view when you look
Mm-hmm.
across the river and see the flat land of Missouri. It's just beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
You should see the thunderstorms come over.
When the
across the-
thunderstorms roll in, it sounds like a timpani drum. When the thunderheads roll across the Mississippi, it's just beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like a textbook example of a thunderstorm.
Yeah.
Anvil cloud all the way down. I worked 4 summers maintenance in campground attendant in the park. That's how I became introduced to it and fell in love with it in its history. And I used to watch it come across, and you could just see the curtains of rain coming straight to you. And it was just wonderful. But the tourists would ask us for the history, and all we boys knew were what we read in the brochure. So we just made stuff up. Yeah, yes, ma'am, the flying saucer landed over there by the miniature golf. Out the Civil War miniature golf. I fell in love with the park, telling lies to the tourists because we were bored, and it was better to talk to the tourists than to work. And I felt guilty, and so I spent the rest of my life learning everything I can about Columbus and the history of the park and the Civil War period. That's really my area of interest. They call me a historian for the whole county, but my heart belongs to Columbus.
Well, that I understand. I understand how the bias sometimes goes. When I think of Kentucky, there's so much, but if I really get down, the Rock Castle, the Lincoln County area is my pet peeve because that's where I've grown up. But I really appreciate the descriptions you all are giving because one thing I've noticed and I really enjoy about Kentucky is if you start at the eastern part of Kentucky, you're in mountains, 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 and then you get to hills and bluegrass, and then it starts getting to it's a little flatter. Then you get a little bit more hills, but then you get back to the riverside, and the terrain is so unique in so many different terrains. Like I didn't think much about these bluffs next to the river, next to the Mississippi River, and now I was speaking earlier with Liz about I'm coming to Trigg County. Well, I need to go a little further to Hickman and check out what you all have just described because I didn't know Kentucky offered that.
Um, One thing you should realize is Hickman is in Fulton County. That's a town. Hickman
So,
County has Clinton in Columbus. Now, Fulton is in Fulton County, except the half that's in Tennessee,
That's
South
right.
Fulton.
That's a
Yeah.
And
point
the
of
reason,
confusion for everybody.
that is true.
Hickman is not in
absolutely,
Hickman County.
That-
Hickman is in Fulton County. So
yeah, and that actually that's actually a very common thing in Kentucky. You have Franklin, which is not in
not
Franklin
in
County.
Franklin.
Yeah. And there's a whole bunch of, and it's like they just spot, well, we're going to name this county after this person. Well, we're going to name our
Mhm.
city after that person too. So, it's
Yeah, they didn't think
interesting.
about logic.
No, no,
No.
no. But yeah, we are talking about Hickman County. If anybody is confused.
Yeah. If we thoroughly confused you, we are talking about Hickman County.
Real quickly, I'm just going to throw out some of the basic information, and then we'll get into some good deep history. So Hickman County was formed in 1821 out of Caldwell and Livingston counties. It is named after Pascal Hickman, who was killed at the battle at the River Raisin. He fought at the Battle of Frenchtown, but then he was captured and then killed in the massacre there. It was the 71st county of Kentucky, and it pretty much has remained the same shape since 1845 when Fulton County was formed. Is that correct?
No.
Well,
No. Okay.
Fact check. John, you're gonna have to name the counties. First of all, no, I'm teasing you, James, really, but Hickman County was the first. It was the first big grand purchase county.
Yeah.
And John.
No. Go ahead.
And then it was subdivided into all these counties John is going to name. Ballard, Fulton, Caldwell. I'm trying, John. Hickman.
Okay. Well, it's complicated because they almost immediately started splitting off from us. In 1822, Callaway County. In 1823, Graves County. In 1824, McCracken County. In 1842, Ballard County. And then Fulton County in 1843. And Ballard split into Carlisle in 1886.
It is really
in other words,
but
they ran away from their mother.
We're not going to let you throw Livingston in there. You can't do that. Also, Hickman County split from itself. A part of it went over to join Missouri.
No.
It's true.
Yeah.
There were so many splits and divisions. And I think in 1870, is this right, John? 1870, finally the U.S.
I believe it was 1870 when we finally got full possession.
We got full possession of Wolf Island. Until then,
yes.
Wolf Island was in question.
Yes. Missouri wanted it. We said no way.
Yeah.
You see, when the boundaries were originally set, it was the stream of the Mississippi River, but it moved. So when you're on that bluff looking at Belmont, if you look to the north, you'll see a chunk of Hickman County. If you look way to the south, you'll see another chunk of Hickman County. And in Fulton, you can't see it's too far away, but part of Fulton County is surrounded in the Madrid Bend.
Yep.
So, as I mentioned earlier, Hickman County really does have this interesting shoreline that is fluctuating still. And the river, I think we have to face the fact that the river has been a trickster all along. It drew Marquette and Joliet there, the French explorers, and there are a lot of French place names. One of the most talked about creeks is we call it Bidichet, but it's really Bayou de Chêne, B-A-Y-O-U. It's the creek of the dog. All of these are early French place names that come from that dates back to the 1600s, right, John?
Yeah.
Yes, the 1690s.
Yep.
French missionaries and fur traders from the Great Lakes region were exploring, and they saw these as they came south from what is now Cairo, where the Ohio and Mississippi meet. First, they saw what they called the Iron Banks. They said it in French, which I cannot pronounce.
I can't either. No.
Yeah, and then there was this huge. See, old Columbus was a flat plain with a crescent of bluffs all the way around north to south. And on the north end was the Iron Banks, which has no iron. And in the south was the Chalk Banks, which has no chalk. It's clay. And in the middle, that's why many of our newspapers in Columbus were named the Columbus Crescent, because it was a crescent of land.
Oh, wow.
It,
Yeah.
Columbus is, if you sort of point to the center of the U.S. map, you might really hit Columbus.
Yeah.
And at one point, it was just this amazing crossroads. It was like a four-way stop. You
Yeah.
had the river going, of course, north and south. And there was a link of railway that was finally completed to Belmont. And we haven't really talked about Belmont. It's called Columbus-Belmont State Park, and there is really no Belmont anymore. But Belmont was actually the site of the main Civil War skirmish or battle.
Yeah.
But anyway, the train tracks came all the way to Belmont, and then from the other way, all the way to Columbus. And then there was a train ferry. This was the 1870s. Am I right, John?
Yes,
There was
starting in the early 1870s.
Yeah. You just have to think about it as this big four-way stop in the middle of America. They had everything going at that point in time,
Yeah.
And they did flourish. It was amazing in Columbus. It was the biggest town in the county, and they had all kinds of commerce, and it was across roads if you were taking your wagon train to the west. But then it all kind of fell apart.
Yeah. Well, before we get to that,
okay.
Now Clinton, though, you bring up Columbus, but Clinton is the county seat, correct?
Clinton.
Yes, 1829.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go back as far as we can know of. I know we mentioned the mound builders and the Chickasaw and those. What pre-European descendants, even the French. I will say, I don't know of any French person who does not know how to pronounce Versailles correctly. So, we are from Kentucky, I guess. It does happen. But pre-French settlers, or explorers, all that, we have mound builders. What other native indigenous people settlements and stuff is in or are we aware of? I should say it that way.
I don't think we're aware of anyone before the mound builders. That's the first named group we have, and we don't really know. It's debatable what happened between the mound builders and the Chickasaws. They might have been wiped out by disease. They might have died off for some other reason. We don't, historians are debating that still. But mound builders and then the Chickasaws used this vast, beautiful land as their hunting ground. And then it was purchased.
Yeah.
And it became
now, is there any archaeologists or archaeological digs or sites or anything like that are marked off or anything like that?
There are mounds in Hickman County, but they're a closely guarded secret. And probably refuse mounds, probably nothing of great importance. But there's no big draw in terms of mounds.
Which that's actually the case a lot of places in Kentucky. There are mounds in many places, but people keep them pretty well.
Oh yeah.
And which is probably a good thing.
Well, once a mound is disturbed, it's open season.
Yeah. So, as many people probably refer to Hickman County and Fulton, all those, the Jackson Purchase region of Kentucky. that all happens around, what is it, 1817-ish or something like that? When is the purchase finally made?
Well, it's in the 1818 to 1820 period.
Mhm.
Andrew Jackson, that's the Jackson Purchase, and he and some other Kentucky officials uh, got together with the Chickasaws
Mhm.
and said, and you may know about Andrew Jackson. He was a man who, let's just say, he was very assertive, and he said, "Guys, I got your best interests at heart. So why don't you let us buy it? Because otherwise, we're making you an offer you can't
Yeah, that
refuse."
happened a lot.
And they said, okay. And they sold it for $300,000. Now, we're talking from what is now Paducah all the way to Memphis
Wow.
and everything west of the Tennessee River line. And it was quite a bargain, a few pennies an acre.
I have a
Wow.
little bit of trivia to tuck in. We have just a few very, very old letters that were written by relatives during the early period of the purchase, and they were spelled, purchase was spelled phonetically as purchase. So
Hmm.
it made me wonder if the early pronunciation, they called it the purchase.
Huh. Hmm. Oh, geez. Maybe so. Well, yeah. Uh, hmm. So once they, a lot of counties. So when okay, so Jackson Purchase happens. A lot of counties, some counties are even made, and then a city is formed. What's the case for Hickman County? Jackson Purchase is made. It becomes this large county. Then what happens?
The city came before the county,
Okay.
just barely. There were already some European settlers in the area. There had
Mhm.
been maybe for 10, 15, 20 years before the purchase. Remember, the Chickasaws hunted here, they did not live here.
Mhm.
Wolf Island, especially. Uh, there were a number of gentlemen who set up on Wolf Island, grew them a little corn, and they do business with the flatboats that were heading towards New Orleans. Their primary product was liquid assets, as my moonshining grandfather used to call it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, in Hickman County, we had Columbus is this big flourishing center with, as I said, the big crossroads of America. But then one of the rail lines dried up.
mhm.
It ended, and so
Yeah.
boom, Columbus is no longer a boom town, and so that leaves Clinton over here to sort of reinvent itself.
Mhm.
It had been the stepchild, I guess, and and Clinton did a really great job of stepping up. They
Mhm.
stepped up to the plate totally. Um, Clinton established 2 colleges, and when I talk about the colleges, uh, they were they were sort of prep schools, I think, for
Yeah.
maybe Vanderbilt, but these colleges were no slouches, and there's one Methodist college and one Baptist college, and you can just imagine the back and forth. The Baptist College was established by Father White, who was a great fundraiser. I think he
Mhm.
established his college first. And then Amanda Hicks, who is a story in and of herself. You'll just have to Google Amanda Hicks. But she established Marvin College. And they it wasn't like a high school. They drew their faculty from the Northeast. They wanted to be like a little Ivy League Central, right there in the middle of Clinton. And they taught Latin, Greek,
Mhm.
um, They taught all sorts of elocution was the word I couldn't think of.
What does that one mean?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that speaking and just, and they had strong history and biology departments. And some of the, some of the faculty stayed in Clinton, had children there. And so that really made Clinton into a different kind of town. We have one famous graduate, John.
Yes. Actually, where my old home was, uh, there was the Marvin College campus. The president's house was next to my house. And go down a couple of 100 feet, and you come to the old boys' dorm that became a bed and breakfast. But my neighbor used to put a sign, Barclay swept here. Alvin Barclay, the Vice President of the United States, worked
Oh,
his way through Marvin College as a janitor.
wow.
And he would always come back here to his hometown. He had many close friends and connections in Clinton and Columbus.
Clinton really was a pretty amazing place after the Civil War.
We're going to pause right there with our discussion about Hickman County history. We want to thank local historian John Ross and Elizabeth Jewell for coming on and talking about their county's history. And thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next time. Welcome to the Kentucky History Channel, where we strive to bring you all the Kentucky history content you want and you deserve. Kentucky is a part of all of us, and we plan on covering all the history we can, from Pike County to Fulton County, from Louisville to Harlan. Here on our YouTube channel, you can find many videos dedicated to different events, people, governors, and places in Kentucky. There's something for everybody. While you're here, if you like the channel, hit the subscribe button and the notification button so you get notified anytime new Kentucky history is available. And if you want to support the channel, we have a Patreon page as well, or patreon.com/KYHistoryPod. You've probably heard about Daniel Boone, but what about the rest of the frontiersmen who came to Kentucky and settled? That's what we want to bring to the Kentucky History Channel. The stories of the untold, the stories of those forgotten. One thing to expect on our channel is great Kentucky content. Some stories that you've never heard of. The Night Riders, who began in western Kentucky. Bloody Monday, the riots in Louisville. The assassination of Governor Goebel, the only governor ever assassinated in the United States. Stories from all over Kentucky, stories that are unforgettable once you've heard them. You can find out who counties in Kentucky are named after and how your county got started. From beginning to end, we plan to document every county in Kentucky, all 120. Reach out to us on all of our social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And also leave a comment on one of our YouTube videos. You can also check out our podcast episodes. You can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and many more. We're always seeking to find more Kentucky history so we can bring it to you, the viewers, the listeners. We want all the stories and all the events from Kentucky's great history to be told and shared everywhere.